Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are firmly in silly season right now. It is silly season. We're dealing with it. It's transfer window time, right? Players are going for money where you go, what? How the hell is that possible? Then other players are going for money where you go, they should be worth way more than that. There's all sorts of intricacies and nuances as to why that is the case, right? English player tax, which we know all about, how marketable a player is, right? We've, seen historically in the past, if you sign a player from a certain region of the world, that your sales and your club value goes up within that region, blah, blah, blah. Lots of stuff that plays into it. James and I are going to play a game today. What we're going to do, we're going to ignore that. We're going to ignore English player tax. We're going to ignore buzz. We're going to ignore where a player's from, marketability, how much a player's liked, social media. We're going to ignore all of it. Just based on player quality, James and I are going to evaluate this list of players that we've got right now. I'm going to give James a name. I'm going to give you their current contract status, and I'm going to ask James what a fair price is. I'm then going to give mine, and then obviously we'll have a little chat about how much they're going for and whether we think it's going to be right or not. So, James, going to start with you.
Yeah, before we start, am I marketing on like just modern day sort of like valuation? Because you may see a player that, okay, right now he's worth 60, but if I'm being true, he's probably a 30 to 15 million pound, 20 million pound player.
So based on kind of the current market as we're going,
current market. Okay, fair enough.
If you were an unnamed club and none of the impact about where they're from, the English player tax or anything, just their value as a player and what they could contribute to a team with their contract and all that kind of stuff, what you would pay as this unnamed football team. So James, I'm going to start with you, a little close to the heart potentially. Declan Rice. Contract until 2024, so he's got 1 year left on his deal. But James, there's a club option until 2025, which West Ham would definitely trigger. So let's just say Declan Rice, 2 years left on his current deal. How much would he be worth?
50 to 60 max. Yeah, 50 to 60 max. 50 60 is for if we're talking English tax. Yeah, but I know there's no English tax involved, so I would say 50 million from the point of view of defensive midfielder, good quality. I think he's in terms of view of Europe today, he's one of the best at winning the ball back overall. 50 is still generous, but I think that would be, the valuation I would give a player like Declan Rice. So I think he's going for double that. A little bit of a worry.
Well, if that's bad from your point of view, I'm going to say James 35 to 40. Again, I think that
you're right there.
If you think about the teams who would be paying the 60, up to 105 kind of amount that we're talking about here, we need a guy who's going to move the needle at the top level of the game, and that's comfortable in possession, being able to play at the top kind of level. Again, not trying to be kind of rude here, but I look at a guy, and I know I'm super biased because it's my team, but Brian Cristante, James, is a great player, and I think he does his role as kind of a deep-lying playmaker, can also play centre-back, breaks up play, does all the kind of simple things well, blah, blah, blah. I think he does his role for Roma just as well as Declan Rice does for West Ham, and is just as good a player as he is. The 105 mil for me is absolute madness if that is what it ends up being. So 35 to 40 for me with Declan Rice with the quality he is. James, Mason Mount.
Oh, Jack, I'm being nice.
Yeah, you are being
my game now. I'm going to step up my game now, big time.
I'm surprised you weren't so high, to be fair. But James, let's go to a player who it looks like the deal's been agreed, or at least we've seen it's basically been confirmed. Mason Mount has gone to Manchester United for 50 million, with 5 million in terms of add-on fees. His contract with Chelsea was just till 2024. There was no player or club option, so he was out of contract in 2024. Mason Mount, no English tax, none of that stuff. Mason Mount, 1 year left. How much would you pay?
18 million.
Okay.
You must think about it right now. A guy with a year left on his deal, 18 million is even quite high. If you like if you're being truthfully honest, again, they run the risk of 6 months' time losing this guy on a freaking like completely. He does have quality to him. He can be a match winner, so that's why I'm putting it a little bit higher. But Jack, having a year left on his deal, 16 to 18 to me would be a proper evaluation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm looking similarly to you. I think 20 to 25, especially with a year left on the deal. And again, I hate to say this, and a lot of Chelsea fans and maybe Man United fans might get kind of mad at me here. I don't know if there's anything particularly special and outstanding about Mason Mount. I don't know what he does that is particularly elite that separates him from other people in his position. I think there's a bunch of players who could probably execute what he wants to do now. The fit at Manchester United seems great. He seems like the exact kind of guy Eric Ten Hag's going to want for the fee, so I understand it. But James, 55 million for a guy who, as we discussed with the Harry Kane video, in 6 months, James, you can talk to these other clubs about joining them for free within 6 months. So 55 million is a heck of a lot of money. We've got to say that.
Also, the Declan Rice one, I want to bring it down to your fee too, because that's way too high. Yeah, I realize that's way too high.
James, Kai Havertz. Now, we're talking kind of a slightly different end of the pitch now. We're more in the forwards area, the attackers section. Proven history of goal scoring and goal creating in the German league, in the Premier League as well for Chelsea, even though it's not been brilliant. Contract until 2025 for Kai Havertz. What do you think in terms of a fair valuation for Kai Havertz is?
25 million.
Oh.
And that's high for a guy that, Jack, let's be truthfully honest. Yes, I'm going back of the history. He did score a Champions League final, winning goal. He has, ripped it up in the Bundesliga before, has had good moments in the Premier League, but overall not great moments. Yeah. The last 18 months has brought his evaluation plummeting down. I mean, plummeting down. This guy is meant to be a world beater. 25 million is still a lot. And that's just due to the fact of how young he is, Jack. And plus, he does have a big contract with Chelsea.
Okay, another disagreement here, which I kind of like. I'm going to go, James, 45 to 50. Again, you mentioned the age. Again, there's a proven history of goals and assists and numbers. There's an international presence there as well, doing it at the top level, all that kind of stuff. And I think realistically, the failings of Kai Havertz haven't necessarily been down to Kai Havertz. I think he's been managed badly, coached badly. And again, on the right team, I think we can see him revisit those Bayer Leverkusen numbers and there's something coming here. James, really interesting one now. Harry Kane, out of contract, 2024, no player option, no club option, 12 months left. I want to say he's 29, 30 years old. Exclude the England thing, all that kind of stuff. Harry Kane, how much is he worth with a year left on his deal at his age?
So I'm going to take it back I'm going to look back at Robin van Persie when he joined Manchester United in 2000 and what was it?
12, 11?
13? Yeah, 12. Yeah. Yes. He joined him for around 27 million. And I'm going to go for a guy who's 30, year left on his deal. 27 to 30 million, I think, is about the right asking price for a player of that. And bear in mind, you want to talk about Van Persie was the best striker in the world, best striker in the Premier League at that time.
Even 10 years later? That much.
Even 10 years later, let's go 40. Let's go 40.
I'm going to say 60, 65. Again, as much as we want to try and rule out the England thing and the marketability thing, I think, this is a guy.
That's what we're not doing English tax. If we're doing English tax, then...
We're not. We're not. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we rule those, even if we rule those things out, we're still talking about the guy who might break Alan Shearer's record, right? And I mean, the moment you sign a guy like that, similarly to your Robin van Persie example as well, James, this guy kind of guarantees you goals in the Premier League, which is insane, and that's got to come at a premium. So I think 60 to 65, again, it's a lot of money for a guy of that age, and it's a lot of money for a guy with a year left on his deal. But again, this is potentially the most prolific Premier League striker of all time that you're signing to your books here, so it's got to come from somewhere. James Maddison.
My valuations are all over the place, Jack.
Yeah, well, look, hey, but this is why I wanted to do it. I just think it's kind of interesting. James Maddison, 2024 contract from the Championship, year left on his deal. What's your evaluation here? I think you and I are both going to go low here.
15 million, Jack. I think, how many times do players go big from being relegated, Jack? It really doesn't happen that much. He is in England. international. Jack, I'll be truthfully honest. I think he's had a decent season. I think he was close to double digits in the Premier League this season. But Jack, the fact that your team did get relegated, you go from being worth a certain amount to just plummeting down. Because at the end of the day, you were part of a squad that finished in the bottom 3 in the Premier League. So that does make a difference to me. 15 million is about the rate you'll be looking at for a player around who, let's be honest, is a championship player right now. I'm not saying he's a Champions League standard, but
right.
his team's in the championship.
I've got to agree. I'm going 20. Again, talented, 26, still got some wear left on the tyres and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned England internationals, proving it in the Premier League is of a decent standard. But again, James, if you're the most important player for the club that you're playing for, which I think you and I probably agree he probably was for Leicester, if you're the most important player, your team got relegated. I don't know how great your performances were if you're the kind of linchpin and your team got relegated. So again, that's super low coming from the Championship as well. And again, James, how many players do we know from other parts of the world who can do all the things that James Maddison can do, but just because he's not English and all this kind of stuff, he gets this extra amount of money? How much did Spurs end up paying for him?
It was 40 million.
Man, that's a ridiculous overpayment in my opinion. Spurs fans, let me know if you agree or disagree. Moving on to another relegated midfielder though, James, Romelu Lavia, been kind of linked with all the big teams here: Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United. Contract till 2027. Manchester City have a buyback clause that's activated next summer.
Yeah.
What do you think here? Because I think you and I both see the potential, but again, I don't know how much you're going to be forking out for potential. What do you reckon for Romelu Lavia?
Jack, you talked about being a player with a lot of people looking at you. He has a lot of suitors, Jack. The fact you mentioned Arsenal, I'm hearing Liverpool. Sometimes you might hear maybe United floating in and around this deal. It seems like everybody is linked with him, and also defensive midfielders. CM seems to be just a big thing this summer. Jack, once again, player got relegated. And how much are you really going to garner for a player who's been relegated? Granted, Jack, he is young. 2027 is a lot, but you mentioned, Jack, the fact that City can buy him back for how much next summer? Do you know?
I don't know. I want to say it's like 40 or 50 or something like that. It's a pretty good number.
It's a pretty good number. He's 19, Jack.
That's what I'm saying. It makes it so difficult because again, if the guy plays really well, that's a 12, 13-year career at your club.
I'm going to say a bit more than Maddison. I don't know how long Maddison had left on his deal, but I'm going to say 20 to 25.
Wow, man, that still feels super low. I'm going to say 40. Similarly to kind of where we've got Declan Rice, because James, the traits are there. You can see what he could be, and if he hits all those marks, you're getting a steal for him at 40, especially at the age of 19. Got a guy playing 10, 15 years at your club. If everything goes well, it is still a huge risk. But again, that Manchester City buyback clause, all that stuff. Why Manchester City got him in the first place? We've seen it kind of in Southampton. Again, the one thing that draws it back is in terms of lowering the price is purely because, again, it's a championship team. But again, that's an interesting one. You could leave that one up for debate for sure. Another interesting one, James, and it feels like this is just the central midfielder show here. Moises Casemiro has a current contract until 2027. There's a club option, so Brighton have the option of extending that a further year to 2028. I believe he's 22 years old, has had this incredible breakout season. Supposedly Chelsea really going for him, but Brighton want like 80, 90 million for him. What's a fair evaluation, in your opinion, of Moises Caicedo with his contract till 2027?
Jack, I feel like we're living like in a normal land here. The money that's being thrown out for these average football players. Listen, let's be truthful. Jack, I'll be truthfully honest with you. Moises Caicedo's good. But you remember what, big books were going for back in the day. Fernando Torres was going for 50. It was a lot, but this was this is arguably the best striker in the world when he went. Ronaldo, Kaká. And you were signing the mega of the mega. Now you have to pay 20 billion for Moises Caicedo, who I think is a top guy. I think
Yeah.
he's a top player, you know. But 15 million?
But James, also let me ask you. First of all, is he better than this player I'm about to say? But also, if he is, how much better is he than Yves Bissouma when he was at Brighton? Right? I'm not I'm not trying to be like rude or anything here. I think Yves Bissouma is a nice football player, but I think he benefited from playing in that Brighton system in a role that suited him perfectly. And I think Moises Caicedo's come in and kind of largely done the same kind of job. So to me, the numbers that are thrown around are insane. But James, let me ask you, what for you would be a fair valuation for Moises Caicedo?
Um, I'm gonna say, Jack, a fair valuation. He recently just signed a new deal. We have to take that into consideration.
Right.
So him signing a new deal is like even even more. Um, I'm gonna say 35 to 40 million. The
I was
fact that
about to
he
say
did
the
sign
exact same thing.
a new deal, you know, he's been buzzing all around the place. So many teams are like linked with him. You're getting a guy who's hot on the market if you do sign him. So you're looking at the 45 million range. And I feel weird saying that he's worth more than Harry Kane, but you have to be truthfully honest. A guy with 1 year left on his deal, of course, he's not better and he's not worth more overall. But when you have a year left on your deal to somebody who's there to almost 2028.
Caicedo is also like, you know, 7, 8 years younger. That can't be forgotten about either. So yeah, look, James, 35, 40, I'm with you all the way on that. Again, I'm not trying to tell you that, Moises Caicedo is not better than somebody like Yves Bissouma, but when we were talking about Yves Bissouma, it was like, wow, look at this guy, blah, blah, blah. Moises Caicedo's come in and done the exact same thing. I don't hear
And
anybody.
I think he's a little bit better. The way he progresses the ball overall on the ball, he's better.
Mm.
Probably a lot more reads the game, a bit more physical. I think he's a better player than
Yeah, I would say so
if I'm
too,
being
but
truthfully
but
honest.
James, we don't talk about Yves Bissouma at all. So
No, no, and Jack, you see a lot of Brighton players where they leave and they don't hit it. Like look at Cucurella. You know, I know like you have your Ben Whites and you have a Trossard for Arsenal, but you also get a lot of players who leave Brighton. It's not the same. You know.
no, exactly. And again, look, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. This is kind of overblown. And again, it's one really, really good season. I don't think we've seen this consistently over multiple seasons. And again, a guy who's not on this list, but a guy who I would personally value maybe more than Moises Caicedo is like somebody like James Ward-Prowse from even the Championship, Southampton. But obviously, I'm a big fan of his. But again, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on Moises Caicedo. And James, I'm not going to be crazy amazed if he does go to Chelsea and it doesn't quite work out the way people think it will based on this money that's flying around. Right, we've got two left, James. Really interesting one. I'm fascinated to see how you go here. Romelu Lukaku, contract with Chelsea finishes in 2026. How much in 2023 would you pay for Romelu Lukaku?
Values drop like a brick, Jack. I'm even
Yep.
like a serious brick. Um, Damn.
Mm-hmm.
You got to factor in what's happened to Chelsea, the history behind the Chelsea stuff. I think if it's Inter Milan, you probably go just a little bit lower, just to get him there because you know how desperate he is to play there, Jack. But I'll be looking at 30 million if I'm being
Okay.
truthfully honest. I think 30 million kind of fits the range because before when he just joined Chelsea, hot prospect, wow, one of the best strikers in the world. Now, Jack, you know, you've seen the memes of him missing the chances of clearing the ball
Oh,
off the line and all that sort of stuff there. Yeah, his overall stock isn't great right now, but if I was a team, would I take a punt out Romelu Lukaku? Yes, I would, because there is a very good player there. But right now, the way he is, I would say 30 million.
yeah, look, I think I'm right with you there. The 25 to 30 million range. This is not going to be the prolific striker I think you want leading the line for you in modern day football. And James, I think there was a time where we thought, is he going to take that mantle of being the best in the world, or at least of
Oh
being
yeah,
a
100.
top five guy? No, it's over. Is he even a top 10 guy anymore? I'm really not sure. I think maybe that's a conversation for another video, but he's definitely a little lackluster now. The respect's gone down a little bit. His wages are super high. So again, 20 to 25 for me is probably fair at the moment for Romelu Lukaku. James, we're going to end on a blockbuster, as you know we like to do. Kylian Mbappe. 2024, his contract ends. He has the option to extend until 2025, but I don't think he's going to do that. So, James, in 2023, with a year left on his deal, how much is Kylian Mbappe, World Cup winner, superstar, worth to you?
The best player in the world. Mbappe, 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 Mbappe. Oh, Killy. Big up Daniel Surgery for that one there. This kid is phenomenal. But you gotta remember, a year left on his deal, basically. A year left on his deal. I think you're looking at 80 million, Jack. I think you're looking in around that 80 million mark, because listen, he basically in 6 months' time you can speak to him for free. I will put him in that Cristiano Ronaldo range. I would like to put him a little bit lower than that, but he can't, Jack. You're talking about the best player in the world. So I would just put him just a little bit higher. You had Kane around 60, and I probably should have put him a little bit higher, if I'm being truthfully honest. But when you have a guy who's phenomenal age, phenomenal player, just frightening, probably most marketable football player in the world right now, Jack.
We're trying to ignore that, but yes, I know you're absolutely right. Look, James, I'm right with you, but I'm going to go up an extra 20. He does break that 3-figure million mark for me. I think you've got to be paying 100 million for a guy like this. There are very few players in world football that move the needle quite like Kylian Mbappe does, especially with his age included as well. As much as I think you might think, well, he's only got a year left and all this kind of stuff. Look, guys, Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe, and I'll be honest with you, the list might even stop right there. There are very, very few guys.
Vinicius,
maybe Vinicius. I think that's kind of generous, but maybe Vinicius, maybe De Bruyne. There are very, very few players that move the needle quite like this guy does. And again, even with a year left, that valuation is I would say very, very fair. You've seen all the reports about saying 200 million, 150 million. I think that's probably a bit crazy, especially in 6 months. You can chat to the guy about joining your club for free the next year. But yeah, 100 million for Kylian Mbappe, absolutely no question, superstar. Guys, let us know your thoughts. Have you agreed or disagreed with any here? Have you liked my thinking on these, or have you liked James's thinking on these a little bit more? We've had a couple where we've been kind of far apart on our valuations. We'd like to hear yours in the comments as well. Drop a like on the video. Hit subscribe if you're not. And until next time, we'll see you.